What's up, guys? We are back with another Marvel Legends review, but today is a little bit different because I am not going to do individual reviews for this wave. Not because I don't want to, well, I guess it's because I don't want to, and frankly, they have just sort of lingered, so I want to get them done and get them out there. So we are taking a look at the Deadpool Strong Guy wave, whatever you want to call it, and we're going to do them in a very specific order. So I'm going to do them all individually, sort of quickie style, in one video, and we're going to start with my least favorite in the wave and go to my most favorite. And just so you are aware, least favorite does not mean bad in a technical sense. It's just from my personal opinion, these are the ones I like least to most. So let's do it. So we're going to get started with my least favorite figure in this wave. And again, this isn't inherently a bad figure. It's just my least favorite from an opinionated standpoint. She's technically okay. So we've got Shikla here. And again, I don't really have a lot of knowledge on this particular figure, this particular character. I mean, I know who she is, and I understand where she comes from now, but she is past my time when it comes to comics, and I'm also, in a general sense, not a big fan of this figure. It is fine, but it is also a very problematic female figure. She's kind of unstable, for one, which is definitely an issue. So we've got a head that cannot look up. She can look down. You've got a little bit of tilt, and then you've got rotation. I mean, she can go out, but it's kind of wonky with that hair. Arms go all the way out. You do have rotation, and it surprisingly, can go all the way around despite having the, the little storm-style cape that she's got, which I still don't really like this. I think it's just flimsy and kind of cheap looking in some ways. You've got your diaphragm cut, so she goes backwards, she goes forwards, side to side pretty good, and then rotation. She can't really go all the way around, though, just based on the build of the figure. I mean, she can, but it's really, really tight. You've got legs that go out only that far. They kick forward really good, though. That's good kick. You've got not much on the back kick. You do have a little bit of thigh cut, and then you've got your double jointed knees, and then you've got rocker, and you've got hinges down at those ankles. But she is, I mean, again, she is kind of unstable. Like, I have a hard time posing her. Frankly, that's the best I've ever gotten her to stand on its own. She doesn't want to stand all that well because of the type of feet she has, and it's just, again, kind of unstable. Now, as far as the look goes, I think she's all right. There is a decent amount of paint on this figure. She's got this kind of tampo design all over her suit, which is like a bones and all sorts of other nonsense all over there. I'm not really sure what most of it is. Some sort of design. You've got painting on the arms and on the thighs and on the breasts there. You've got her little floating necklace. So there's a lot of things about this figure. Like, she has a lot of different features, but for me, she just kind of falls flat a little bit. I'm still not a big fan of this. Not my thing. I didn't really care for it with Storm either because, it feels kind of flimsy, kind of cheap almost, and it sort of looks that way. Her face is okay. I kind of think that her head is maybe a little bit too big for this body, but the face printing is pretty good on there as far as the overall colors, and then the design for her little headband is nicely done. So, like, she has a lot of little things that I really do like about this figure, but taken as a whole, and for a character that I really don't care about, it doesn't really work. And let's be honest, at least for me, the star of the show for this particular entry in this wave is not Shikla. It is this little guy right here, this shark dude, Jeff the Shark or whatever his name is. Again, I don't know anything about this guy, why he exists, what he's supposed to be doing, why he has legs. None of that matters to me because this is cool, this is funny, this is stupid, and it's a good stupid thing to go with your menagerie of stupid-looking Deadpool figures. So it'll definitely be a good accessory buddy, and I like little pack-in things like this. So despite the fact that she's at the bottom of the barrel for the wave for me, this is a cool inclusion. It's obviously very unique tooling, so it's something they didn't have to do, but I love the idea that they went with it, and I mean, come on, this thing is cute as hell. Next up, we have got, I guess maybe, I don't know, the flagship character for this particular wave, the Pirate Deadpool figure, because it's the one that got all the press, it's the one that got all the push and the oomph as far as marketing goes, and let's be honest, this guy is a figure that is going to appeal to people that don't necessarily collect Marvel Legends as well. Like, this is one of those kind of figures. One that is on the shelf because there's no doubt in my mind that this guy will pegwarm eventually, that people will see and they'll be like, hey, I like Deadpool, I'm just going to buy this guy because he looks funny. And that's essentially what it is. It's a fine figure, but there's really nothing here that makes me really interested. It's a nicer figure as far as construction than Shikla, though, so he's kind of up there. And it is a funny concept, so, you know, that wins a little bit. I am still, and I say this every time we get one of these waves, I'm still very tired of tons and tons of Deadpool figures, so here we are. So we've got a head that can look up a little bit. Yeah, pretty good. He looks down really good. Not really much tilt, and then you've got full rotation there. Arms go out at the shoulders. They rotate. No butterfly joint on this guy. We have got a bicep swivel. You've got your double jointed elbows. They're pretty rough on the left side, your right, because he's got the big gloves. They're fine on his right, your left. You've got a wrist swivel, and then you've got hinge as well, as usual. Now, where things are different is that he has no crunch or no diaphragm cut. So we got new tooling on this guy as far as a chest goes, right? But he has no articulation there, which is really, really weird. You've really just got, you know, the kick backwards here because it seems like it's a ball peg down there. Yeah, so you've got ball peg, and then you've got your tilt side to side, backwards, forwards, and then rotation. He would have been really nice to have had a diaphragm cut there. It kind of screams that type of joint system, at least as far as, I don't know, modern Marvel Legends or the current state of things, I guess is the best way to say it. So you've got legs that go out, and then they don't really go out too far because he's got the big business going on down here. They kick forward. These are Bucky Cap legs, so they have all that articulation, but he's just hindered because he's wearing a skirt dress thing. And then you've got the thigh cut. You've got double jointed knees that are very much hindered. You've got your boot cut rocker, and then you've got your hinges. So, I mean, he's fine, really. There's nothing too crazy about it. I guess he is covered in a bunch of stuff, so maybe he shouldn't be as articulated as your average Deadpool. I do appreciate the new tooling when it comes to the chest piece, but again, I would have loved to have had a cut there, but at the same time, you know, when I think about it, they probably wouldn't have done that because it would have broken up all that stuff that's on his chest. So I guess it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing. The look is, I don't know, it's fine. It's goofy, it's weird, it's a very Deadpool thing. I just don't have any attachment to it. I don't even know where this comes from. So, you know, I know it was a cover at some point. Is that all it is? Was it just a cover, like a variant cover? But he looks okay. Painting is surprisingly okay. I was worried about the belt. I mean, it's kind of globbed on there, but I was worried about bleeding, and it's really fine. I've seen some others that are maybe a little bit worse off, but mine seems okay. The gilding on the chest there is pretty nicely done. The cape, while, you know, being a big static thing, looks pretty good in the tatters. And then you've got the pirate hat up there with the skull and crossbones. You've got your telltale Deadpool expression with one eye, kind of bigger than the other. I think he's okay. He's just maybe not for me, I think is what it comes down to. This guy is a means to an end figure with me when it comes to this wave because, you know, Build-A-Figure stuff. And then he does have some accessories, and one thing I do like is you can store all your accessories on the figure. So I say that a lot, and I mean it because it's a big thing for me to not have to store stuff away. So you've got one of his more standard, you know, katana style swords, and he does have sheaths on his back for these. They will get kind of warped though if they stay on him because of the cape is kind of going to apply some pressure to them. So beware of that as I knock him all over the place. So you've got one katana, and you can see that it's already bent because it's stayed on his backside. And then you've got a cutlass style sword, which I do really like. So that's a good thing. And then we've got a flintlock pistol, which I'm a big fan of this one. I mean, it's very era specific, so it's not going to work with a lot of figures, but that's a cool little accessory. So he's got 3 different things. And again, all of them can be on him at the same time. So not too bad. Just, again, maybe a little bit too goofy Deadpool for me personally. Next up is probably a figure that's not much of a surprise, the Blue Suit X-Men Deadpool. And this guy, we're getting into the realm of figures that I'm perfectly happy getting. They just aren't at the top of my list. So Shikla and Pirate Deadpool are figures that are, I mean, they're okay. They're just not for me. This guy, I'm perfectly fine with. I think he looks pretty solid, and he's on a body that I'm pretty happy with. I still like the Sunfire body. We do have other improvements in the line that have kind of built upon this, but I'm still pretty happy with the way this thing operates. So we've got a head that can look up. He can look down. You've got rotation, not really any tilt, a little bit, but not too much. You've got arms that go out. They rotate all the way around. Butterfly joint, bicep swivel, double jointed elbows. You've got your hinge and your rotation at those wrists. He does have a crunch, of course, but he is hindered by his harness. So it's a belt that's connected to the harness. It's basically like suspenders, and it keeps him all together. So it does hinder him a little bit. You've got rotation at the waist. Legs go out, but only that far, one of the limitations of this body. You've got legs that kick forward. they kick backward. You got your thigh cut, double jointed knees, and then we've got our shin swivel boot cut, rocker, and hinges down at those ankles. So, I mean, if you're familiar with this body, you know what to expect at this point because, well, it's basically just the body. There's nothing special. There's really nothing different. The only problem is that he is, of course, a little bit hindered when it comes to the harness that he's wearing. And it's a thing, but it's not a big deal. The suit in general, I think, looks really good. The blue is very consistent and pretty crisp and clean throughout. He looks good with the yellow piping, and then of course you've got the harness which matches the yellow piping quite well. Also, it's the, you know, one of the telltale Deadpool heads, so you've got the one with a little dealy bob that hangs out of the back for the mask, and then of course you've got your little Deadpool expression that is underneath the mask as far as that one eye that's a little bit bigger. He does of course have a few pouches, so that's always a Deadpool thing, and then you've got the sheaths on the back for two swords that are just your standard Deadpool. They are really, really tight. So just standard kind of katana style swords here with a little bit of blue and gold in addition to that silver. And then he does have a few other accessories. So we've got some futuristic stuff going on here, and we've got the kind of swirly pearlescent metallic plastic. Normally I'm okay with this stuff, but for these guns, for some reason it doesn't really work for me. They look almost unreal. They don't look like they could even be guns. So you've got this thing here, whatever you want to call this, and then you've got a little futuristic kind of pistol. So he has two guns and two swords. You can store the swords on him, and you could have him holding both guns at the same time if you wanted to have him fully kitted out. But he has a pretty solid array of accessories, whether you truly care about this stuff or not, and he looks pretty good. He moves decently enough. The only real hindrance is the torso area because of the fact that he does have all that business just sort of locking him down a little bit. Next on my list is Black Tom, and this guy maybe isn't technically the most exciting figure, but I'm glad to finally get this guy, and there's really not anything wrong. Although I do have one problem with this particular figure as far as paint applications go, as far as my particular figure. But in a general sense, I'm pretty happy with him, and I'm finally going to get somebody to pair with my Juggernaut. So that's a big thing. It completes a little bit of a duo. So we've got a head that can look up. He can look down. No tilt on this guy, but you have full rotation. Arms go out at the shoulders. They rotate. No butterfly joint here. You've got your bicep swivel. Double jointed elbows, range is okay. He does have the big kind of flared gauntlets there. And then you've got hinges and rotation at the wrist. This guy is basically a very standard Marvel Legends figure. You've got a crunch that goes backwards and forwards, and then you've got your waist twist down there. Legs go out about yay far. He kicks that high, a little bit back, pretty good actually. And then you've got your thigh cut, and then we've got the double jointed knees, and then of course you've got a boot cut down here. It's hidden really well, and you've got rocker, and you've got hinges down at those ankles. He is, again, a pretty standard figure, so he's not anything technically crazy, but he looks the part pretty well, you know? I mean, there's a number of looks for Black Tom. They kind of went with, I think, an amalgamation of a lot of the normal looks and just kind of put them all together into one figure. I do have one problem with mine. There is a nick on his chest where he's painted. So with one area that stands out the most, he's got a little bit of a paint flub there. So I say I'll fix it, but I probably never will. Otherwise, he is just mostly black with red accents. So you've got red parts, black parts. He does have his shillelagh here, which I really like with the skull at the end of it. The head is kind of a standard dude, but at the end of the day, Black Tom is kind of a standard dude. There's not a whole lot to write home about. The sculpt is pretty good. Paint accents are nicely done. He does have a little bit of a almost cartoonish vibe in terms of his presentation, but at the same time, I think he's going to mesh really well with Juggernaut. And again, it's a pretty basic figure because he's kind of a standard guy, and I think it translated pretty nicely into figure form. Again, the big thing for me is that I finally have him, and he's going to go next to Juggernaut, and they're going to look good just standing on my shelf together. Next up, we have a classic X character for me. You know, 80s and 90s stuff. So it's right up my alley. So we've got Sunspot here, New Mutants, X-Force, Externals, all that kind of 90s nonsense that I absolutely get nostalgic over. So this guy was likely going to be at the top of the list for me anyway, but I think he looks really good. He is, unfortunately, just on a Bucky Cap body, which I wish he was on the Sunfire body because he is that kind of character. He's a little bit more agile, more sleek. This still works, but, you know, it shows its age. So we've got a head that can look up really good, which is nice since, you know, for flight. He's got a head that can look down. Not any tilt, but he has full rotation. Arms go out at the shoulders. You've got rotation. You've got to watch the little bubble nonsense coming out of the back. We've got bicep swivel, double jointed elbows. You've got your hinge and rotation at those wrists. Ab crunch goes back about yay far, forward, and then you've got your rotation down there. Legs go out only that far, forward, backward, thigh cut, double jointed knees, and then you've got your rotation at the shin, and then you've got your rocker, and then you've got your hinges down at those ankles. So he is a very, very standard Marvel Legends figure. The big thing for me with this guy is just the overall costume choice, the era that they chose, and then really the execution on it, because he looks really good. I mean, paint is pretty crisp and clean. I don't have any issues with, well, too many issues, I should say, with fuzzy lines or anything like that. For the most part, I think it's nicely done. The X on his collar is really well done. I really like this stupid stuff coming out of his back. You know, if you can do this for him, you can give me a speedball that's covered in all sorts of stuff like this, Hasbro. I know you can do it. I know you have it in you. And yeah, I'm sure I'm not the only one that wants that goofy figure. So yeah, I mean, he looks really good. Like, it's just a basic figure, but I think he looks nice. And it very much kind of exudes that particular instance, version, era of Sunspot. And I do really, really like the head. I think it's just the right depth and shade of black, if that makes sense. Like, it's really deep. It's a very, very deep, flat black. So it doesn't really shine too much. I mean, it shines a little under the most intense of lights, as you can see. But just in your normal setting, he looks really good. He kind of like a void almost, which works really well for his power set. And I dig that. And the mask is really well done also. It's pretty crisp and clean. And speaking of bubble junk, he does have two of these. And they are one of the instances where we get a Marvel Legends that has this effect piece that I don't mind, because this very much fits him. It looks correct-ish for how he manifests his powers, so I'm okay with this one. I don't really like this effect anymore. I mean, we've got it in every flavor and color you can think of, right? But I think it looks really good here, and it works really nicely with this guy. So again, he's kind of a basic figure, but, you know, for this guy, basic isn't a bad thing. It works pretty well here. So we're at the number 3 spot, and you obviously know, if you've been paying attention, who is left. So, you know, place your bets now, I suppose. But I think we've got a really solid figure here. He just kind of gets hedged out for a few little reasons when it comes to the other figures that are left. This is a really, really solid entry in the line. So don't take number 3 as to mean he is in any way bad. This is an exceptionally good figure. And frankly, it's pretty much everything I wanted, save for, I don't know, one thing maybe that kind of bugs me, but at the end of the day, it does not diminish my enjoyment of this figure, really. So as far as articulation goes, Omega Red Body. We've been wanting it. We've needed it. I think it works pretty well here. We've got a head that can look up a little bit. I mean, his hair gets in the way, but he can look down really good. He doesn't have any tilt, but he has full rotation. You've got arms that can go out. These pads can come off, so you might have to watch. They might pop out when you're moving him around, and he can rotate again. The pads can come off. They're going to get in the way when you rotate all the way around. You've got your butterfly joint, which is, of course, one of the hallmarks of this body because it's a big guy with a butterfly joint. We've got a bicep swivel. We've got double jointed elbows, and then we've got hinges and rotation at those wrists. You've got your ab crunch, so he goes backwards about that far. He goes forwards really good. You can get a nice hunch, and then you've got your waist twist. Legs go out pretty good for such a beefy guy. He kicks forward, kicks backward just a little bit. You've got your thigh cut. We've got double jointed knees. And then you do have your boot cut down here, and then you've got your rocker, and you've got your hinges down at those ankles. So, I mean, he moves about as good as everybody would want him to move. I think this guy is really nicely proportioned in a general sense. I mean, he's big, he's beefy, but he's still able to move. I mean, Warpath is a very physical character. Obviously, that's his thing, is, you know, hand-to-hand combat. So it's nice that he's really big and bulky, but still can retain a lot of that mobility and be posed really well. I do think that, you know, this body has something that I didn't really think about at first, but once you take a look at, say, the figures that have used it, so Omega Red and Warpath, both of them have shoulder pads, and they can come off, and I wonder if this is kind of why we don't see this very often, because this, to me, doesn't look right. When he doesn't have them on, he looks oddly proportioned this way. You know, maybe I'm seeing some trickery here, but I don't think it looks all that good. So I'm not going to be doing that, although obviously it's not really meant to be. It's just sort of a thing that I looked at when it came to this body. But when he's taken out of the box, he looks really good. This is a fantastic looking Warpath. The colors are really nicely done, just the blue and the red, and then you've got the gold armbands, but it's crisp, it's really clean, the lines are really well done. I don't really have too much to gripe about in terms of any of the fuzziness or anything like that. Dig the feather in his hair. The only thing that I truly have to gripe about with this figure is I think it's either the expression or just the era that they're going for with this figure. He looks really old to me in some ways. The same way that X-Man from the Sugar Man wave looks really, really old. It's like they're giving him kind of a grizzled look and expression, but it comes across to me as old and curmudgeonly in some ways. It's sculpted well. Like in certain angles, he looks better than others. But to me, dead on, something about him kind of screams, I don't know, old Warpath for some reason. And then we've got the oddity of the figure in that he comes with gripping hands, trigger finger hands at that, but he doesn't have anything to grip. Warpath is known later on for using knives, you know, when he's doing X-Force stuff. I don't have any knives that are going to work for this figure, unfortunately, that I can think of. So he has trigger finger hands for a character that normally wouldn't be using guns, but also comes with nothing to grip. So I don't know, I'll probably stick an ice cream cone or something in his hand. So that's odd. I don't understand this. You know, I'm assuming this is like getting things ready for when they give us the inevitable X-Force version that does in fact come with the knives. So, you know, maybe they're planning ahead, but at the end of the day, he's probably going to stay just like this, and he's going to look really, really good doing, I don't know, anything, nothing, just standing still. So with this guy in front of you, you know who my number one is, but Maverick is, honestly, as far as the core figures, he is my favorite in the wave for, honestly, quite a few reasons. He looks really good, he moves really well, and he was just such a surprise. I knew Warpath was going to be my favorite right out of the box, and I opened him first, and I was really happy with him. And then I opened Maverick, and I just didn't put him down for a while. So that's a good indicator for me, is if I don't want to put the figure down, I know that I'm enjoying it. And that's really what it came to here, because there's just a lot of stuff going on with this guy, and I really like the way he looks. I've never once said that I needed or even really wanted a Maverick. He hasn't been on my radar, my priority list, or anything. I'm very familiar with him, but at the same time, I mean, there's plenty of other characters I'd much rather have than this, but at the same time, he is a really good figure, and that's what we're here to talk about. So let's see what he can do. So we've got a head that can look up, and he has really good head movement, except for this junk back here that's actually getting in the way. So it holds onto him. It doesn't really get in the way, it just holds him down. So he can look down, and then he has tilt, but it kind of recenters him, so you got to kind of watch how you pose him, and then he rotates. So it's all there, you just got to play with these tubes. Arms go out at the shoulders, they of course rotate. No butterfly joint on this guy though. And then you've got a bicep swivel, we've got double jointed elbows of course, and then you've got vertical hinges on these hands and a rotation. Both of them are vertical. We've got a ball peg at the torso, so he goes backwards, he goes forwards. Of course, he has a whole bunch of stuff all over him. Tilt side to side, and then, you know, you can get him to rotate really far still. Nothing at the waist, though. This is all one piece. So everything you've got is at the torso. Legs go out really far still, though. They kick forward. They kick backward. You've got your thigh cut. Double jointed knees, of course. And then we've got our boot cut, and you've got rocker, hinge, all that good stuff down there at those ankles. So, you know, he does move pretty well. Again, he's not the most advanced figure, I should say. Like, he doesn't incorporate all the new articulation schemes that we see with Legends. But at the same time, for all the stuff that he has going on, all the new stuff here, I think he moves rather nicely, and he's still posed easily. A lot of my interest, though, of course, lies in the look, because, I mean, frankly, they've got a lot of stuff going on here that I just enjoy in a figure, from metallic paints to the like kind of pearly, translucent stuff that we've got going on. The face in particular is incredibly well done, and I just like the look. I mean, I really like Maverick's look, and he translates into a figure really, really nicely. So, you know, he's got the robo cyborg kind of soldier look going, and I mean, frankly, it just works. It works for me. So all the golds, the silver, you know, the brown as far as what little bit we do have for the pants, it breaks things up a little bit. The paint on his gauntlets is really, really crisp and clean, the kind of tiger stripe almost. You've got a holster for one of the two guns that he has. And then despite the fact that this stuff does get in the way, it does look really good. I mean, it gives him another bit of depth and more, you know, futuristic cyborg kind of look. The face, though, and the head sculpt in general, I am a really, really big fan of. I think it looks really well done. The hair, the windswept look is really nice. The actual paint on the face from the black and the gold mask with the red eyes, very nicely done. And I mean, it just looks cool. He looks he looks pretty hardcore, and that's essentially what I wanted out of this figure. You know, I didn't think I needed or wanted him, but once I got him out of the package, I was truly, truly happy with him. And then he does, like I said, come with 2 guns, so you've got some very futuristic guns which actually work pretty well. He can only store 1 of them on him, so you can have 2 in hand, 1 in hand, and 1 holstered, so only 1 can actually be stored, technically. You've got this guy here. This is the one that he would really need to hold. It doesn't fit in the holster all that well. And then you've got this guy that does fit in the holster quite nicely. So they're very similar, but at the same time very different, so kind of like small, futuristic submachine guns. So, I mean, yeah, this guy is definitely at the top of my list for the regular figures, but once assembled, the Build-A-Figure definitely took the top spot for me. Because just look at this guy. He is absolutely massive. And I mean, I'd be lying if I said that the main focus of this wave wasn't the Build-A-Figure. That was truly where all my interest lied. This was the goal, was to get this guy. And I think they did a really, really solid job with this figure. He doesn't have anything else. He's just the Build-A-Figure, but it's Squeedo, it's Strong Guy, so he doesn't really need anything. And this is, I mean, frankly, this is the look. So he does, of course, have other looks, you know, like the X Factor Investigations type of look, whatever, all that kind of stuff. This is what I want, X Factor colors. This works really well. So we've got a head that can look pretty far up for such a big guy. He's got a big, thick neck. He looks down a little bit, and then you do have tilt, and then you've got rotation, but he can really only go that far because of the big collar. Arms go out at the shoulders. The arms are kind of different on this guy. They rotate in there. You've got a single jointed elbow, so he can basically just sort of do that. And then you've got your hinges and rotation at the wrist. So he's pretty basic because, I mean, they're enormous. You've got your diaphragm cut here, so he goes backwards, he goes forwards, tilt side to side, and then he can rotate all the way around. There is nothing else there down at the waist, though. You've got your legs that go out pretty far, so he can almost do the splits. And then he kicks forward, which is pretty good for such those chunky thighs. He goes backwards a little bit. You've got your thigh cut still. We've got our double jointed knees, and then he does not have a boot cut, but he has rocker, and then he has the hinges, of course, down at those ankles still. So he moves pretty well. I mean, he's not like the most articulated figure, but you know where I'm going. It's all about the looks, because I think they really, really nailed it with this guy. I think he looks absolutely fantastic. There is one thing that I recall being different on this guy now than when we had the prototype shown. I'm pretty sure the zipper was painted originally, and it's not on the finished product, which is definitely a little bit of a bummer. I've seen some folks go back and paint that, and it looks amazing. But by comparison, the X on the chest is so well done. This is something that I was worried about because I kind of figured it'd be fuzzy or be just glopped on there, but it's not. I do have a little bit of bleeding on the shoulder pads, but otherwise, I mean, I think the colors pop really well. The yellow, the silver, the blue, I mean, it's classic X colors, so it works really well. Size is, of course, a big thing, and the best person to use right now is Sunspot because he is a Bucky cap figure, so to give you a standard figure, he is quite large. I mean, most of him comes in the overall like girth and width. I mean, Strong Guy isn't the tallest character, but he is big and thick and beefy, so that works really well. And then the head sculpt on this guy is pure cheesy goofiness, and I really dig it. The glasses with the silver and the red and that big goofy smile with that little shock of white hair is everything that I really need in this figure. I think he looks pretty exceptional. He still moves really well despite being just big and beefy. And I mean, come on, this was the focus of the wave. This is the big thing, no pun intended. I am very, very happy with how this turned out because I need more of these kind of figures when it comes to my X-Men collection. So yeah, overall, this wave is pretty interesting. There are definitely some high points and some low points for me when it comes to this one. We've got characters like Shikla that they're okay as figures, but they don't really do it for me. The 2 Deadpools they're okay, but they, again, don't really, really do it for me. I am, again, very, very tired of Deadpool. I've never been a huge Deadpool guy, at least in the modern Deadpool sense, so I'm getting very, again, tired of it. The rest of this wave, though, I'm really happy with. Black Tom, basic figure, but he looks really cool. Sunspot, basic figure, but he looks really, really cool. Again, I was very happy with how he turned out. Maverick, Warpath, both exceptional figures in their own right. They are, of course, very different. Warpath is making great use of that Omega Red body finally, and Maverick just looks great. I'm really happy with the way he turned out for a figure that, frankly, I didn't think I needed. And then Strong Guy rounds it out with a really fantastic build-a figure. Again, this guy had to be a BAF. He's massive, he's big, he's bulky, he's got great size to him, and frankly, he looks like he leapt right out of the page. That head sculpt in particular really, really nails it. So yeah, that's going to do it for the Deadpool, Strong Guy, whatever you want to call it, wave of Marvel Legends. So let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.